Hi, I'm Kiana Miner. Welcome to the Crazy Courage webinar, where we are busting success myths and learning how to live more courageously. Today, I'm really excited because on this video interview, we have Joanne Cohen. Joanne has been a friend and spiritual advisor of mine for a few years now. The first time I went to her was a few years ago when I was undergoing a lot of change in my life, and she helped me get in touch with my intuition and kind of listen to what the higher purpose for my life is. Joanne is an intuitive counselor. She studied with Dr. Doreen Virtue, and she really helps her clients to honor their soul's purpose in their lives. So excited to have you here with us today, Joanne.
Well, thank you. Lovely to be here. Thank you.
So I think we should just go ahead and jump right in. I would love, Joanne, for you to talk about how you got to where you are today. You're very intuitive, and I would love to know if you've always listened to your intuition, or is it something you had to grow into?
Well, I think my intuition has always been present, whether I listen to it or not. That's part of the human experience of growing and learning. But I always felt very connected to God and the universe, and I felt that I had an inner voice my whole life. And it really started to blossom about 12 to 15 years ago. And, I had some interesting spiritual experiences, and my intuition saved my life. And so it kicked in a very big, major way.
Okay.
So.
Okay, that's amazing. Are there any of those spiritual experiences that you can share with us?
Well, I'm actually in the process of writing a book about some of my experiences.
Okay.
Yes, and it took the form of major synchronicities in my life and also visitations, spiritual visitations. And I connected with the angels for the first time about 12 years ago. And that was an overwhelming experience in my life. So, saw one, came to me in the middle of the night.
Wow.
So, yeah, so that was a pretty overwhelming experience. And, when they speak, you listen. So.
Right. Now, when this first happened, were you afraid?
Oh, my God. It was 3 in the morning, woke me up from a dead sleep. I was sober at the time, and but I had never connected with angels before. I thought they were pretty, but I had no previous experience. And then it was pretty scary, but I knew it was a good thing. And it was golden light and wings and things like that. And when I woke up the next morning, I knew exactly what my purpose was, 100%. And I knew I was supposed to teach and guide others. So.
Okay. Now, you said you knew that it was a positive experience. How did you know that in the moment, if you can remember?
Well, I remember every single thing. It was because my heart was filled with love and joy, and I felt that beautiful feeling of positivity. It was just so warm and loving in my heart. I knew it was a good thing. I knew, and it was beautiful golden light and things. It was the most profound experience of my life.
Oh, so. Wow. So when you woke up the next morning with that knowingness of what your life purpose was, did you immediately jump into that, or did it take you a little while to kind of build up the courage to take those next steps?
Well, it was a little overwhelming, and I did some research and armed myself with information and knowledge, and then I was nervous about, how do I do this? How am I equipped? And I just knew, I had a sense that I would be guided and led to exactly what I needed to do. And that's exactly what happened. So.
Wow. Now, when you work with clients, do you find that that's something challenging that you have to, like a hurdle you have to help them get over, is sort of listening to their own intuition? How does that kind of play out?
Yeah, I think it's part of our human condition that we're not 100% confident in ourselves. And being a person of faith, I'm very, very fortunate that I was born having 100% faith in a higher power. I'm very blessed in that way. But that's the that's the biggest hurdle, is to help people have faith in something that they can't see or feel. So I connect them with their abilities to sense their intuition in themselves. And so they begin to trust it. And it's almost like a muscle, building up that muscle of intuition, which leads directly to having courage and faith in yourself.
Okay.
So,
okay, I think that's amazing. Yeah, I remember when I first came to you, and we did do an intuitive reading, and I was just so amazed because it was the first time I'd ever experienced anything like that. And you told me things, and you revealed conversations that I only had with myself. So that's how I knew. I was just like, oh my goodness, how did she know? And I remember you saying that the intuition or the guidance that you were sharing with me was something that I could access. And at the time, I was just like, I don't really know how. Like, what's the advice that you give to people who want to kind of access this intuition and access sort of their higher guidance?
well, some people find it, I would say, of course, meditation or being quiet with yourself and listening. However, not everybody can do that. There are ways to connect to your, it's really listening to your soul is really what it is. And there are many ways of doing that. It's not just sitting quietly in meditation. It's also just learning to connect to the way your body works, because the body never lies. So if you get a tense feeling about something, or no, or a flat feeling, you know that that's your body telling you, no, this is not good. So even if you can't be quiet with yourself and listen to what your heart and soul are saying, you can listen to what your body is saying. But if you feel excited and uplifted, then you pretty much know that that's a positive response from your body.
Okay, I definitely love that response. I definitely think that our body has sort of this intuitive knowledge and can guide us to information that sometimes, our minds are just so full of fear or worry, and we may not have access to.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about the difference? You did say that, when the body feels excited, then you know that that may be a yes, but when it feels sort of flatlined. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Like, what's the difference between feeling sort of excited, and you may be afraid because you've never done it before, and feeling sort of a fear that says, okay, not this way, not this? What's the difference? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I feel if let's say, for instance, you're trying to receive messages from your soul. Some people hear them in their mind, and they can even hear a yes or a no. But most people, the average person, can't. And so if there's a surge in your heart that feels loving, and almost like you have bubbles in your heart, like, bubbles, and it's an excitement, it's not up here. It's in your heart. It's something that your body senses. It's not something that your mind tells you. Okay, so we have to bypass the mind, because our mind, once it gets involved, it kind of mixes things up a little bit, right? So if you feel that bubbly, loving sensation, that's usually positive. Okay. And if you feel an automatic revulsion, not fear, because fear is something that the mind creates. But if your body sort of either like feels flatlined or just flat, and you just feel heavy, that's generally an indication that it's not good for you.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Are there times in your own life, like, I know you've always had this heightened sense of intuition, are there times in your own life where you didn't listen and you wish you
yeah.
Is there a time that you can maybe share with us that, where you may have something was coming up and you didn't really listen, and you kind of learned later, okay, I need to listen to my intuition. I need to follow that guidance.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is, typical woman in a relationship. I found that maybe my gut was saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't even think about it. But I somewhere in my brain was trying to make me, talk me into, getting involved with somebody, and it really ended up not being a good thing. And I ignored my intuition. My gut was saying no, no, no. And my brain was saying, for whatever reason, maybe I just wanted to be loved or appreciated, or thought I was going to be, and I wasn't. So my gut has never lied when it's come to a relationship.
Okay.
My brain has lied to me,
Yeah.
but my heart, my gut has never lied to me.
Yes, I definitely think a lot of women can relate. I can definitely relate to that. It's funny because at the time of heartbreak, you're like, how could this have happened? How did this happen to me? And then years later, the beauty of retrospect is you're like, well, I knew all along that that wasn't the right way. So I love that example. Yeah, I love the example that you shared.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you do and that you advise your clients to do to stay open so that they do hear their intuition and that guidance?
Pardon, can you ask me the question again?
Oh, yeah, sure. What are some of the things that you do and that you kind of guide your clients to do to stay open so that they do hear that guidance? Are there certain tools in your toolbox that you use? You did mention meditation. Are there any other things that you do to kind of stay open?
Yes, I mean, the number one thing I can recommend is staying present in the moment.
Okay.
And so if you start to jump ahead, the what ifs, if you're going to the what ifs, the what might happen, you're already lost.
Okay.
If you're living in the past and beating yourself up about what happened, what should have happened, what could have happened, what might have happened, you're lost. If you stay present with exactly how you're feeling in the moment, that's the best way to stay open to being sensitive and aware about what's going on inside you intuitively.
Okay.
So staying present, yeah.
Okay, that sounds awesome. Are there any stories that you can share about sort of success stories you've had with other clients? I shared mine a little bit, but what kind of things have your clients been able to do when they had the courage to listen to their intuition that they may not have done if they didn't have that courage?
Well, I think the two main topics naturally would be love and relationships, or business and work.
Okay.
And I think that, for instance, let's say I've had a long-term client who I've seen for many years, and they were struggling in a marriage that was very challenging, and it took them many years to be able to work up the courage through listening to their intuition and really opening their heart to themselves and what was for their highest good, and also what was good for them as a woman, as a person, and bypassing what was in their mind because they were kind of brainwashed in their situation, and to sort of put that aside and go completely with the gut. And after many years of struggling in a very challenging, abusive situation, they were able to pull themselves out and stand firm in what they felt, that they knew for sure in their heart, in their gut.
Okay.
And it turned out to be correct in the end. And the other would be, for instance, even myself, when I decided to go out on my own, doing, working just self-employed, going from being employed to self-employed, it wasn't just a leap of faith. I felt sure in my heart and in my gut that it was the right decision, and it ended up being the best thing I ever did for myself.
Oh, wow.
So,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
What are some of the reasons you think we close off to ourselves? Why do we close our hearts to ourselves? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, it's also a very human thing to do. It's all about fear. It's fear. And, it was interesting, before this call and interview, I started thinking about, why are we so fearful to open our hearts? Right. So whether it's past experience and maybe we thought we were led down the wrong path by our intuition. Right. It wasn't our intuition. It was probably our fear guiding us down the wrong path. Okay. And I think a lot of us are afraid, and we feel that we can control events with our mind and make things happen and stay away from pain, and you can't. You just can't. Sometimes we have to experience things, but I think it's fear is the biggest thing that stops us from connecting to our heart and being open.
Okay. So you mentioned pain. Is listening to your intuition, does that help us avoid pain, or can it sometimes lead us in painful situations?
I feel that if we're meant to experience certain things, and I feel that we do experience certain things to learn and to grow, if we do experience some pain, listening to our intuition, we can't avoid it completely, but what we can do is learn in such a way that it uplifts us. So, where you take a deep breath and you say, oh, well, that was challenging. That was really hard. But wow, look how much I learned. Look how far I've come, and look how much I've grown as a person by experiencing that. Now, it does take a minute sometimes when you're in the midst of pain, and to not beat yourself up if you haven't listened to your intuition. But it helps you learn the best lesson that you possibly can in a loving way towards yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the people who are in situations where they're unsure of whether they're actually following their intuition or not, can you talk a little bit more about what it feels like when you're leading with fear as opposed when you're leading with your intuition? Like, what are the differences in feelings, just so that people can identify it easier?
Well, if you're allowing fear to make your choices and decisions, generally, it's in your brain, it's in your mind, and what it is it's probably a thought-out decision or a thought-out choice based on perhaps your behavior patterns, it could be, if you're making a decision from your mind, you're making a choice based on other choices you've made in the past. It's all very calculated and controlled.
Right.
Intuition, sometimes it comes from a deeper place. It comes from your soul, which really only ever wants the best for you. Now, I'm not saying that sometimes we're not led into situations that can be a little challenging, but it's more of a loving approach. You just feel, and it feels right to you. Even though in your mind it seems wrong. For instance, if you've been hurt in, let's say, 3 or 4 relationships in a row, right? And here comes another person into your life. But you've done a lot of work on yourself, you've grown, you've taken time to yourself, and someone new comes in, and you think, well, I don't know, I think that he seems to be the same as all the other ones, and I'm not sure, and so I'm just going to stay away from it. That's your brain making a decision, whereas this could be somebody who could be so wonderful and right for you. And if you let your heart and your intuition make that decision, you may be coming up with a very different decision in the end.
Okay. That's awesome. I love how you talk about trusting your heart, because I think a lot of times the heart kind of gets a bad reputation. We think our heart leads us to frivolous decisions or decisions that aren't very logical. And we think, okay, if we think these things through, then we'll make the best decision. But you're saying sometimes the best decisions come from our hearts.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, absolutely. I feel it has to be a combination of everything.
Okay.
But if your gut and your heart are saying, go for it, and your mind is saying, well, he hasn't proved himself, or I don't have enough money in the bank, or I'm not really sure how to do this, well, then you get your information and you get what you feel that you need to feel secure, but your heart is still saying the same thing. Okay. So if your mind needs to catch up, then you can let it catch up. But I think ultimately, it is what the heart tells us.
Okay.
It is.
Okay. That's amazing. So a few years when I came to you, you talked a lot about my angels, and you really helped to ignite my relationship with my angels, so that now I'm hearing them on a much more regular basis, and I'm able to just kind of open up to that intuition or that guidance. Could you talk a little bit about what the role of angels are in our lives? Like, why do they communicate with us? What's their purpose?
Well, I feel that the angels are, they're true messengers of the universe. So there's no there's no religious, connotation. I know that they appear in the Bible and things like that. But I feel that they're just loving beings with no agenda and no ego, by the way. I just feel like they're non-physical beings that are here as helpers and messengers of the universe to help us in our day-to-day life, whether it's to find a parking space, whether it's to find true love, whether it is to open our awareness or help us with our spiritual growth. I feel that they're all around us, and I've discovered that myself, and I don't share anything that I read from a book. It's what I have experienced firsthand. Okay. So, yeah.
And have you always experienced the relationship with angels, or is that something, that took a little time?
Well, as I said, when I had this big experience about 12 years ago, that was the first time. I mean, I heard wings flapping and golden light and all of that, but my whole life I've always felt the presence of love around me. And I just assumed, I'm a God person, so I felt it was God talking to me. Now I understand that I've had a guardian angel speaking to me my whole life, and so I hear it as a voice in my head, and always telling me things. I didn't always listen, as my human track record can prove, but the voice was always there, and I've always felt that I was always protected. I'm not saying that I didn't get myself into trouble, like every teenager or whatever, but I always felt that I was being protected, and I feel we all are to a degree. I really do. I feel like we're all protected.
Once that ability sort of came back for me, I remember times when in my childhood I definitely heard sort of this voice, and it was just a comforting presence that seemed to always be with me. And it's funny, when I remembered that, I was just like, well, when did it stop? When did they stop speaking to me? And I realized that it never stopped. I stopped listening.
Yeah.
Why do you think we do that? I know you've worked with a lot of clients, and why do you think we shut ourselves off to that guidance?
Well, I think we get very busy in our day-to-day life, and there is so much going on. There's so much stimuli going on, and it's, for instance, a lot of people, they come home from work, flip on the television, they're checking their phone every second, and I'm not judging it or criticizing it, but there's a lot of outside noise that goes on. And the more quiet you are with yourself and able to hear what goes on in your own system, even what silence sounds like, there's very little silence, and then I think, and we also just get busy in a very outward world, not our inner world, but the outer world. And so we're tactile, we're touching other people, we're in each other's energy all the time. It's hard to maintain that quiet inside yourself. It takes a lot of practice, which is why meditation is very helpful, or yoga or something like that, to maintain that quiet inside.
Okay. Oh yeah, I think yoga is amazing. Meditation as well. What are some of the other self-care, activities that you do to maintain the quietness?
Nature is fabulous. It's free. You can always go outside. Right. You can roll around in the grass. You can hug a tree or something like that. But I just feel being out in nature, whatever nature appeals to you, connecting with animals is a beautiful way to just connect on a very basic level. Animals are, they're all love. They're all, and I feel that they're very evolved, and we can connect to them and just be at peace when we're in the presence of animals and children. And but nature is also a wonderful way to connect to yourself. Just to sit outside, just to be connected to all things natural. Yeah.
I agree. I have 2 little ones now, and I feel like they connected me back so much, like just being around them, sort of the purity of their spirit definitely helps you align, helps you connect.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you're on your own now and that you have your own business. How has your intuition helped guide you in making that business what you dreamed it would be?
Well, it's ever evolving, and so I've never had an office, so I do some work from home, and I work in several locations, and my intuition guides me as to the best place to be.
Okay.
So sometimes I just hear in my head, go to Buckhead. And oh, okay, Buckhead is an area of Atlanta.
Right.
And so I looked around, and sure enough, they were somewhere, and, things like that. But I knew that I would be okay. And I also know that if business is quiet, and I teach a lot of classes, and some weeks I feel guided, and my intuition tells me this is the week to do catch-up work on your accounts and things like that, but everything will be fine next week.
Okay.
And then it is. I get guided to put certain classes on the schedule, so I'll just sense that it's the right time to teach a class about intuitive development or connecting to your unconditional love for yourself or whatever it is. And the timing is always perfect. And believe me, I'm not smart enough to think of any of these things. I feel I'm totally guided. I feel it's my intuition. My brain couldn't think of it. And so I feel guided to do a number of things, and that's where I'm led. And the biggest bonus for me is that I trust. I trust 100% what my intuition tells me. It has taken me many years to get to that place. Okay. That is what I wish for everyone, to be able to trust your own self. Mm-hmm. And because that will always guide you in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. I think that alone takes a lot of courage.
It sure does. Oh, yeah. And not to listen to what everyone else says. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just listen to what you think and what you feel. Yeah.
You mentioned unconditional love. How does that play into all of this? How does that help you trust yourself more? What's the role of unconditional love in courage and in trusting your intuition?
Well, I feel that the universe loves me unconditionally. Now I can't believe I just said that out loud, but I do feel that. I truly feel it. I didn't always feel that. Years ago, I felt that I was I was getting into trouble for making human choices in my life. Mm-hmm. And now I realize that there's a much bigger picture to it. And I believe that that your intuition is connected to the universe, and that it's all given to us unconditionally, in an unconditionally loving way, to help us. I feel it's all about loving ourselves unconditionally, receiving love unconditionally from the universe. So it all kind of ties in together. But people who feel that the universe is a bad place, it's loaded with fear and punishment and retribution and all of that, they're not going to listen to their intuition, because they probably feel that it's a bad thing. So I think being open to receiving love unconditionally is the key to following your intuition.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely just had an aha moment when you said sort of the way you view the universe and the world is sort of the way you interact with your own intuition. That's that sort of gives a whole nother meaning to why it's good to cultivate a positive perspective or positive
Absolutely.
Insight, right? Positive thoughts. A question about the angels. Are your angels like relatives that have passed, or are those sort of two different things?
Well, there are two different things. Okay. I am a medium, so I do work with those who have crossed over, and their energy is very different to an angelic energy. So a deceased loved one, their energy it vibrates at a much slower rate, and although they can be around you, ancestors and deceased loved ones can be around you to be helpers, but they're not the same as your angels. Your angels are beings that have never been here, have never incarnated on Earth. They have no ego, so they're only there for your highest good, and they're completely unconditional, and there's no agenda. Now, I love deceased loved ones, but they have a personality still. They have their ego, and if they were a little, let's say, judgmental in life, wow, they've taken it with them. They're still judgmental, and so that's the difference. That's the main difference between the two energies.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So when we talk about guidance, people should probably look toward their angels to get that guidance.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I go to the universe or to God first,
Right.
and then yeah, that's how I do it. And but the angels are 100% messengers of the universe, whereas sometimes our deceased loved ones have a little agenda.
Okay.
They have their own little agenda, so they still have some fear and some worry, and we don't want that transferred to us. We just want to feel their love for us. So
Okay. That's good to know. That's good to know.
mhm.
Do you use prayer? You talked about sort of connecting to God in the universe. Is prayer a vehicle that you use for that?
Absolutely, I pray all the time, and I feel that praying is just a way of being open to receiving.
Okay.
And to sharing gratitude and love, and it just flows back and forth. I also use something called intention setting. So I set positive intentions, send loving intentions towards those I have to have, let's say, maybe a challenging conversation with in my personal life, or if I want to travel smoothly, I send positive intentions. But I'm also always praying and opening that line of communication between the universe and myself all the time, on behalf of myself and behalf of my family and everyone that I know. So if there's a constant flow back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that the same thing with your angels? You just keep that conversation open? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Does that look formal for you, or is it sort of more of a casual interaction? Like, do you set aside time?
It's always.
Always.
Always. I could be
Wow.
shopping.
Okay.
I could be in the middle of going through the racks, shopping, and in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, please let so and so arrive safely, and and it's a constant. There's a constant conversation and flow of prayer. Always. It doesn't have to be formal as long as it comes from your heart. It doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. So it's between you and the universe.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. So, are you still, when you work with people, do you see their angels too? Like, you talked about that situation where in the middle of the night, you actually saw angels. Do you see other people's angels? Or does it come
Yes, I do. I do. So I have to kind of be tuned in for that to see that. Sometimes people will ask me, what are my guardian angels' names, and I'll look and I'll be able to sense them or hear them or see them, and so I'll be able to communicate with them because I hear in my mind. That's my primary sense. Besides seeing and feeling and knowing, I also hear. So their angels will talk to me, and I'll send the message to the person that I'm talking to.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's like a life-changing experience. I mean, it completely changed my life to sort of have that connection opened up. So I'm sure for your clients, it's life-changing as well.
Oh, yeah, but I just want to say that everyone has angels. Everyone has a guardian angel, 1, 3, or 7, and everyone has them. And so we're born with them, and they are with us our entire lives. And so everyone can communicate with them if they choose to. All you have to do is ask.
Okay. What's the relationship between, we covered this a little bit, but if you could just talk a little bit more about the relationship between the angels and God, what's the difference and what are their relationship to each other?
Well, what I feel is that it's one big universe, and I believe that God is a universal intelligence, a loving force, and I feel that a lot of the time we need to receive messages, we need guidance on a regular basis, and so God has created these other energies to help around the earth. And so if you can imagine the planet as it is, it's so beautiful, blue-green planet, and around the planet is this beautiful sort of circle of light everywhere, and the angels kind of exist around there, and they are dedicated to helping mankind and guiding us and helping us and supporting us, and that is their primary role here. And I feel that it's all asking for help is difficult for some people because it's their ego that prevents them from reaching out, or they feel they don't deserve it, they don't want to disturb any of the angels. Well, they're here to help. Right. That's what they're here. It's all, I feel it's all set up. I feel like it's one big setup to assist us in our growth here, our learning, and our experiences. So I feel like they're all on the same side. Everybody's working to help everyone else. Okay. So
have those energies intensified lately? Like, it feels like the energy's different. Like it may be a little bit more intense. There's more going on today. What's happening sort of energetically with that?
Well, my sense is that we're evolving as a planet. So and so the energy around the planet is shifting, and I feel that we're kind of moving up in some way. And with that moving up, things sort of get stirred up and moved around, and I feel that it's becoming easier and easier for us to connect to and see these other types of energies. And you can usually, a really great way of knowing what's going on is watching television, believe it or not. And you see what kind of programs are being shown on TV. Okay. And the more programs about, the Long Island Medium or this or that, the more programs there are, the more conversations there are about people seeing things, something's up.
So awesome. So right now you're working one-on-one with clients, and you have group meetings as well locally in Atlanta?
I do. I have a weekly meeting, an angel message circle that meets every Tuesday evening, and then that's in the Roswell area of Georgia, and I have a group that meets in the Midtown area. I teach a multitude of different classes. I travel to different cities, and I do some work online, and wherever I feel it's needed to bring that light, to communicate with people, to help people connect to themselves. Okay. That's what I'm all about.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So you do remote work as well?
Yes, I work by phone, by Skype, by FaceTime, whatever. Yeah.
Okay, so for people who want to get in touch with you and want to work with you, where should they go to learn more about what you do?
They can go to my website, which is joanne-cohen.com. Okay. And there's lots of information on there. You can find me on Facebook, and I love to keep in touch with and create community on Facebook. So.
Okay, awesome. Was there anything else that we didn't get a chance to touch on that you wanted to share regarding angels or your intuition or courage?
I think the most important thing about courage is it's like a muscle that can be developed. Okay. And that comes from having faith in yourself, getting to know yourself, understand yourself. And courage is much easier when you have faith. And faith is not in a religious sense, faith in yourself, faith in that there's beauty out there, and the universe is a good place. Okay. So.
Okay, I love that. And we do need to wrap it up, but I just want to ask one more question, because you touched on having faith in yourself. What does that look like when you just have faith in yourself?
Having faith in yourself is knowing that we're all human, accepting that we're human, accepting that we're not perfect, and but that we can recover from whatever goes on in some way. And I'm not talking about, we're not talking about crises here. I'm talking in a general way, to know that taking one small step at a time, building up that courage and faith that there's always something ahead, that you're never really alone, that if you keep going forward and you keep on moving, that things will shift and change and grow, and that's how I feel about faith and having faith in yourself. It's also like building up a muscle. Just keep going. Nothing stays the same. Eventually things shift, things change. It's the way of life. It's energy. Everything's always moving. So keep going, and eventually you're going to get to the next place, then the next place, then the next place, and build up your faith in yourself.
That's awesome. awesome. That's a great way to end the call. So thank you so much, Joanne. I think a lot of people are going to benefit greatly from what you shared today.
Oh, thank you. It's been lovely chatting with you. Thank you very much.
You